My name is Andrew Joseph Jr. My father's name is Andrew Joseph Sr. My son, his name was Andrew Joseph III.
My name is Deanna Joseph. I am the mother of Andrew Joseph III. Andrew was my firstborn, my eldest child, my only son. And like most parents, he was the apple of my eye.
Originally, we're from New Orleans. We relocated here in Tampa after Katrina. We settled here in Tampa for a better life, for a safer life, for the resources, for the natural beauties they have here to offer here in Tampa.
We said that we would give everything that we could possess in nurturing this fine boy. If it was the sacrifice of paying for the best schools, we would sacrifice that. If it was the sacrifice of making sure that he lived in the best of environments, we would make that sacrifice as well. Society said that you needed to provide those things to have somewhat of a perfect life. And that if you did all the things that your parents had instructed you to do, go to school, get a good education, wait, get married, then have children, then you would be able to somehow reap a successful life, and your children would reap those successes as well.
I introduced the world to my son, Andrew Joseph III. He was a model child, an honest child, a caring child, a child that fathers pray for.
On March 30th, 1999, the date in which we actually delivered him, it was a day like no other. It was a day that a dream had come true. It was a day that you would finally be able to give your gift to the world.
Me and my son had so many memorable situations. I mean, we would just sit down and talk. We would talk sports, we would talk politics, we would talk life. And I really miss those conversations that we had, the father and son conversations, because as being from New Orleans and coming here, we both was new here. We both talked funny. We both looked funny to the people, to the natives here. So we had a special bond amongst ourselves that we was able to talk. It was bigger than us being father and son. We were best friends, and we could talk about just about everything. And, as I'm cutting my grass, up until today, I'm missing my son right on side of me.
You would have that blessing to be a mother, to have done everything the world had told you to do, everything your parents had told you you needed to provide to the world, to leave your steps behind, to leave your fruit, to give this man, your husband, his son, his namesake, his bloodline. It felt like a great success for me.
My name is Deja Joseph. I'm Andrew Joseph's little sister. Growing up with Andrew, it was never a dull moment. He would always make someone laugh. He was always smiling, and he just cared about everyone else.
My son has always been an A-B student. He's never had a discipline problem in his life. He's never been suspended from school. He's never had in-school detention. We've never received a phone call from a teacher concerning his behavior. This was a model child. We have scholarships from Tampa Catholic. He was in his 6th grade at St. Stephen's Catholic School, and they was recruiting him in high school already because they thought he was an 8th grade student when he was playing ball in the 6th grade.
Always be polite. He wouldn't be mean to anyone, or he was always polite. We took a lot of pictures.
When we look at the systemic failures of the school district providing tickets to children and never asking the question of how will we secure the safety of these children, When we think about the Florida State Fairgrounds and their ability to make profit off the heads of young people, but then demonstrating into their policy that safety is their number one priority, for all the world to read and to see, and never having a safety first policy in place. When we think about the Hillsborough County Sheriff Department and their authoritative measures, you would think that all those systems would work.
Well, on February the 7th, 2014, here in Tampa, there's a such thing called the Florida State Fair, where it's a school-sponsored event where the Hillsborough County School District lets out all the students from kindergarten up until 12th grade. They let them out for the entire day of school. And in return, the school board also offers a free ticket to go to this county fair. Well, my son, he didn't go to public school. He went to Catholic school, so he didn't receive this free ticket. My son had been preparing to go to this fair weeks in advance. He asked his mom, can she take him to the mall so he can get something new to wear to the fair. So my wife took him to the mall and spent all Saturday before the fair in the mall, getting him something new to wear, socializing with his friends, all making plans to go to this fair. Now, the day of the fair finally came. And like I said, my son had school that day. The kids in the neighborhood was all prepared to go to the fair as early as 10 and 11 o'clock when the fair opens. But my son wouldn't get off of school until 3 o'clock, so they decided to wait for Andrew to get out of school so they can go to the fair with him.
On February 7th, 2014, life changed. Life changed when a little boy came home from school and requested to attend a school-sanctioned event with friends. Like any other parent, life would entail that children would have to require social skills, and they would be able to go out into the community and enjoy that time with friends at school events.
And as they were meeting and greeting all the little kids in the fair, they ran into some kids that Pewee went to school with. And again, Pewee goes to St. Stephen Catholic School. He was the only black kid in school in the 8th grade at that point. So he was standing on the rides with his classmates. And as he was talking to these little girls on the ride, one of the little girls noticed that the police was arresting some young men at the fair. And she said, Pewee, isn't that your teammate that the police is arresting? He said, yeah, that is my teammate. I'm gonna go over there and I'm gonna check on him, make sure he's okay. And the little girl said, no, Pewee, the police already have him. There's nothing that you can do. I said, no, those are my friends, those are my teammates. I'm gonna make sure they're okay.
When all systems fail and death is at your door, what would you do? Where will you stand when the life that's on the line is that of your child, your 14-year-old kid who had done nothing, who was innocent?
The police asked my son, do you know these kids? Yes, officer. These are my friends. I play football with them. I was supposed to come here to the fair and meet them. Well, these kids are being arrested. And I'm gonna need for you to come with me. For what, officer? I haven't done anything. He tells his partner that, we need to get him as well, that he needs to come with us. So my son is detained at that point, barricaded, as the information was gathered. And as the young man explained to me, they asked him for their name, their address, and their telephone number. And since, I'm the gang task force, I need to check you for gang markings. So my son was asked to disrobe. I need you to take your shirt off because you're supposed to have something tattooed across your stomach, something tattooed across your back, and something in between your fingertips. Of course, my son had none of those markings. He had no tattoos, no piercings, period. So that particular night, there were 13 kids that was actually arrested and that went to the JAC Center, the Juvenile Correctional Center. And there were 99 kids, my child being one, that was ejected from the fair. Meaning, you, 99, you didn't really do anything, but we can't allow you to stay here in the fair. So we're going to eject you, meaning we're going to put you in an official police car, drive you 10 minutes away from the fair, and release you 100 yards from the interstate without notifying anybody. Not your parents, not your guardians, not the facility at the fair, just release you on the side of the road. And as my son was trying to get back to the safety of the fairgrounds to be picked up by the next door neighbor, he was hit on I-4, 100 yards where he was dropped off from by a young man named Jonathan Hatfield, who was 19, who was actually coming from the fair going to the casino. In my world, Jonathan Hatfield was coming from the bar going to the bar. Okay? Jonathan Hatfield ran over my son in his SUV, and the state troopers that did the depth investigation on top of the interstate, on top of I-4, didn't even ask Jonathan Hatfield for a breath test. Jonathan Hatfield didn't receive a ticket. In fact, Jonathan Hatfield was released from the scene of the incident, of the murder, of the death scene, with my son's remain all over the front grille of his SUV, like nothing had ever happened. He was allowed to go home that night in the same car that just ran over my son, like he had just ran over a dog in the road, or some roadkill that put a little dent in the front of his car that he was okay to drive home with. And at this point, the time has came for Miss Munn to come on and pick my son up, but of course Andrew wasn't in the spot that he was supposed to be in to get picked up. So Miss Munn began to call the house and to inform us as parents that that she's here to pick up Andrew, and he's not in the spot that he's supposed to be in. Have we talked to him? No, we hadn't talked to him. We thought he was at the fair and everything was fine. But my mind, I'm thinking he got with one of his little friends, or he got a little girlfriend out there he's trying to spend some extra time with. So Miss Munn said she was going to make the block one more time and look all around the fair, but she doesn't see him anywhere. So Miss Munn called back about 15 minutes later saying that, Andrew is still not where he's supposed to be at. And they actually closing the fair there, shutting down all the lights. So she don't really know what to do. So I told Miss Munn to, just to come on and come home, and I'll get my truck and I'll go out there to the fair. And I got a big old air horn on my truck. I could blow my horn, and me and my son have a relationship that, he hears that horn, he's gonna come running. So I go out there and pick out my son myself. Don't worry about it. I appreciate you bringing him out there. And I went on out there to the fairgrounds, anticipating picking my son up, and giving him a good talking to him about not being where he's supposed to be at and things like that. But as I approached the 301 side of the fairgrounds where he was designated to be picked up at, there was a corny worker out there shutting the gate, putting the locks on the gate. And I explained to him that, this is where I was supposed to pick my son up. Are there any more kids in the fair? He explained to me that they had a lot going on out at the fair, that they actually had to close the fair early that night. And the fair was completely closed, and everybody was out of the fair. He explained to me that there was about 20 or 30 kids on the other side of the fair, on the Orion Street side, that was waiting for rides. They also had policemen and sheriff over there, and maybe I can go to the other side and see if I can find out some information about my son. So I did as the coroner guy instructed me to, and I drove to the other side, from the 301 side into the Orion Street side. And as I approached the Orion Street side, indeed there were 20 or 30 kids standing out there waiting for rides. And as I came into the driveway, I eyeballed each one of these kids looking for my child. And, I was more than sure that my child was none of these kids that were standing out there. So as I approached the police to explain to the police that, I was here waiting, looking for my child, he was involved in a conversation with another police. So, I politely stood at the car as they talked to each other through the window, waiting on them to drop the conversation if I could explain to them what's going on. So it took a while, but eventually I had to approach them and explain to them that, my name is Andrew Joseph and I'm looking for my son. He was supposed to be on the other side, and I was instructed to come around here to see if he was around here. And I don't see him with any of these kids that's standing out here. Can you help me? And I was a little agitated at first that I had stopped the conversation, but they did ask me his name. And they started running his name at the hospital and down at the Jack Center. And I'm dealing with the sheriff's department, giving his name, and he's running his through his system. And the state troopers, was telling me that he's investigating the death reports on top of the interstate. I know my son don't drive, and he wasn't involved in no accident. He wouldn't be in a car like that. So I was trying to dismiss what he was talking about because he's telling me that he's dealing with a death on the interstate. And he asked me what my son had on. And I explained to him, the clothes that he had on. And he asked me, say he had on a black shirt, he had on some black pants, but the shirt had fluorescent white writing in it. I think he had some black Air Max on as well. I said, okay, do you have a picture of your son? I said, yeah, I got a picture in my phone. So I flipped through my phone and I showed the state trooper his picture. And at that point, they was talking to each other through the car, and I was standing up. So me and the state trooper never really had eye contact. I was kind of talking over him, and he was trying to kind of talking under me. But when I showed him the picture, we caught eye contact, and he asked me a weird question like, is this your biological child? And I say, yeah, this is my firstborn. You know what I'm saying? And I really got along when he asked me that. So he rolled up his window and he played with his computer for a little while. And I was getting kind of anxious, so I approached the car a little closer to find out what was going on. He said that he asked me, have I called my son? I said, yeah, I'm calling him consistently. His phone is ringing 4 or 5 times, and it's going to his answering machine. It's not like it's ringing once or twice and the answering machine is picking up automatically. It's going through the whole cycle. And I'm not sure if he's lost his phone or his phone is broke, but yes, I am calling my son. He's not picking up. He said, well, Mr. Joseph, can you do me a favor and call your son down? So I called my son's phone again, and just like before, the phone rang 4 or 5 times, and it went to his answering machine. So he sat in his car a while longer playing with his computer, and at this time, it was beginning to miss it again because this was a rainy Friday night that this took place. So I approached the car again, and this time he got out the car, and he put his hand on my shoulder, and he explained to me, I could still see the look in his eyes. He had he was a Caucasian officer with some gray hazel eyes, a short haircut, military haircut, and he told me, the phone that I'm calling is ringing in a deceased person's body that they have down at the morgue. And I don't want to alarm you, Mr. Joseph. We're not saying that this is your son. Maybe somebody stole his phone or he lost his phone, but the phone that you're calling is ringing in his pocket. The person that we have down at the morgue has something funny around his waist. Can you tell me what your son had around his waist? At this point, reality is kicking in and my heart is beating and I couldn't even remember what type of belt he left the house with. So at this point I called back home to my wife. I explained to her that, you're not telling me much, but this is a life and death type of situation. So I really need for you to tell me what type of belt Pewee had on when he left the house. Then my wife get to hollering and screaming, and I can't make out what she's saying, and I'm pretty sure reality is kicking in for her at this point. And finally, I was able to understand. She was telling me that Pewee didn't leave the house with a belt on. That he had went into my closet and took out one of my Gucci body scarves and wrapped the Gucci body scarves around his waist, and that's how he left the house with this scarf around his waist. So at this point, I'm kind of thinking to myself, and the officer's bothering me now because he's right here in my face wanting to know what my wife had said. And I explained to him that my wife said that my son had a scarf around his neck. He had a scarf around his waist. And at that point, the officer told me, because of the fact that he had on the black clothes that he told me that he had on, the fact that I called the phone and the phone rang in his pocket, and the guy that they have down at the mall definitely has a scarf around his waist, and he started to tell me that that was my son that was killed on the interstate tonight. If I could wait here for about 20 minutes, there'll be an officer that's on the scene now to come and give me a report.
Your 14-year-old kid who had done nothing, who was innocent, but then was delivered death. As a parent, as a family member, as a community member, as just an individual who cares about the life of another, what will be your position? What will be your action? What will be your stand? And how will you go back and tell the story of how Safety First failed Andrew Joseph III on February 7, 2014. Andrew was deserving of so much, and he was delivered so little. To this day, we seek so much. We seek answers. We seek a resolve in what had occurred. We ask that the wrong be made right. But the wrong can never be made right if we're not willing to admit to the wrong. And that has been the family's focus from day one. Make the wrong right. It won't bring Andrew back. We realize that he's gone. We realize that he won't be returning. But we know that his blood is on the hands of each and every official who looks away and does nothing. Don't you be the one to look away.